He again resumed, "These legions come not to do your work or my work, or to use man as their instrument. Man may call upon them to encourage, sustain, and comfort him in his work as master of every condition of life. With this power man may still the waves, control the winds, quench the fire, or direct the multitude. One may use them only as he has mastered them. He may use them for the good of the whole human race, or he may use them to drive home the meaning of man cooperating with God. One who is able in his divinity to call upon these legions knows beyond question that he can use this combined power only in true service to humanity, for he knows that it will consume him as well as defend him." Here the speaker paused for a moment, stretched forth his hands, and in a measured, reverent voice said, "Father, it is our great pleasure to have these, our dear friends, with us tonight. It is with a true and humble heart that we say, 'Thy will be done.' We bless them, and in blessing them, we bless the whole world." He sat down as calmly as though nothing out of the ordinary had taken place, and all our friends were calm, but the members of our party were on tiptoe with excitement. Then the invisible choir broke forth with, "All know the power that is in the name, and man may proclaim himself the king, and then with humble mien, that man may rule himself supreme." Let me read that again. "All know the power that is in a name, and man may proclaim himself the king, and then with humble mien, that man may rule himself supreme." During this remarkable demonstration of power, we had been unconscious of our tense, nervous condition. But as the choir finished, we became conscious of this, and we had seemed to need the music to help us relax. When the last strains of music had died away, we arose from the table and gathered around our friends and the priest. This gave the leader of our chief opportunity to ask questions, and the priest, seeing their interest, invited them to spend the night at the monastery with him. They bade us good night and left the room together. We were scheduled to leave at noon next day. It was arranged that only Jast and Chandler Sin should accompany us to our outfitting point, where Emal would join us, and the three would return with us to the village of our winter quarters. After these arrangements were completed, we returned to camp, but did not retire until nearly daybreak. So interested were we in talking of what we had witnessed. Next chapter. At 12 o'clock, with all final arrangements complete, the expedition moved out of the village amid the cheers and good wishes of the greater number of the villagers, who had gathered to bid us goodbye. Our next stopping place, where we were obliged to cross a wide stream, was reached about 6 that evening. It was thought best to camp in order to prepare for the crossing, as this would consume the greater part of the next day. Since there was no bridge or boat, the crossing was accomplished by sliding across on a large cable made of plaited leather thongs that had been stretched across the river. The individual members of the party experienced no difficulty in negotiating the cable. The chief difficulty was in getting the horses and mules across. This was finally accomplished by making a strong sling from leather straps and arranging it so that an attachment would fit over and slide along the leather cable. This sling was first securely fastened around the animal's body, then secured over the cable, and the animal was pushed over the bluff, where it hung, suspended above the roaring torrent, until it was pulled to the other bank. To this sling were attached 2 ropes of sufficient length to reach across the river, one serving to pull the animal across, while the other served to pull the sling back again for another animal. In this way, all crossed safely. We experienced no further difficulty, and aside from the crossing, we found the trail much better than the one we had followed going out. We arrived safely at our outfitting point, where the expedition was disbanded, and arrangements were completed for those who were to return home to go on to the seaport by the regular caravan route. The next morning, Emal joined us, and after bidding our associates goodbye, we started out on our return trip to the village of our former winter quarters. We again stopped 2 days to rest at the bandit camp, where the 2 men remained, thus reducing our party to 7. These two men told their comrades of the remarkable trip they had made and the wonders they had seen. Our party was shown every courtesy, though, of course, our three friends came in for the greater honors. The leader of the band assured them that the bandits would hold the location of the cities absolutely sacred out of their respect for the consideration that had been shown them. We were told there was very little danger of this band's ever attempting to go so far away. The desert bandits never invaded the mountains, nor did the mountain bandits invade the desert, for they were continuously at war with each other. So far as we know, they have faithfully kept their promise. The morning we left this camp, the leader of the band came and gave our chief a small silver coin about the size and weight of an English shilling, with a curiously wrought inscription upon it, saying that if any of the bandit bands in that country molested us, we would gain our instant release by showing this. He told us that it had been in the possession of his family for many generations, and that he cherished it very highly, but he wished our chief to have it as a token of his esteem. After examining it carefully, Emal said it was a very faithful reproduction of a coin that had been in use in the northern Gobi many thousands of years ago. The date showed that this particular coin had been made more than 700 years before. He then told us that these coins were worn as a kind of charm by some of the natives of the region, and the older the coins were, the more efficacious they were supposed to be. No doubt this particular one had been prized very highly by the leader and the whole band. From this village we continued our journey and arrived at our winter quarters in due time without further incident. We were welcomed heartily by the party which visited us in the desert and which we had left at the village where we met the high priest. We were again invited to share the home of our former hostess, which invitation we gladly accepted. This time there were but 4 of us, as 7 of our associates had returned to India and Mongolia to carry on further research work. This arrangement had been suggested and agreed to in order to give us more time for the translation of the records. All was quiet in the little village, and we gave every moment of our time to the arrangement and form of the symbols and characters which made up the alphabet, placing them in the order that enabled us to use them, thus giving us an insight into the meaning of the words. In this we were assisted by Chandler Sen. While he was not with us all the time, he or our hostess was always at hand to help us over the difficult places. This continued into the last day of December, when we noticed that a number of people were again congregating for the yearly gathering. They were nearly all people we had met at the gathering the year before. We found that this year they were to meet in the temple and use the center room of the 5 upper rooms that were arranged along the ledge as already described. We went up to this room early New Year's Eve in order to meet and talk with those who had gathered. We found that they were from numerous places, and they told us of things that had happened in the outside world with which we were beginning to feel we had lost all contact, yet we had been happy in our work. The time had passed rapidly, and we were very content.